Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to an episode of Found Footage Fridays. We are continuing our deep dive conversations about the Paranormal Activity franchise.
Woo! Feeling the excitement.
Yeah, this is especially considering it's found footage, it's like surprising how many of these were good, because it's such a long stretch of films. And usually by like the second or third film in a series in horror, that's usually just starts to go down.
Yeah, 5 main ones, a spin-off, and then I guess a spiritual sequel later on, which will...
Oh, yeah. So if you haven't seen our conversations about the other ones, they're in the playlist for Found Footage Fridays. Steve and Tom talked 1 and 2, and then we did 3. And so now we're talking Paranormal Activity 4.
Just to have it up. I know we do this right?
Oh, yeah. I'll have to send you the template for the sizing, because I have thing where it's like, like the normal size. Because you won't let you change it in here.
Oh, no.
It just it just does whatever it's there.
Third of the screen, whatever.
Yeah. You get the point either way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just a short synopsis on this. It's been 5 years since the disappearance of Katie and Hunter, and a suburban family witnessed strange events in their neighborhood when a woman and a mysterious child move in. This came out in 2012, which feels like eons ago, right? But yeah, what are some of your, initial thoughts about 4?
Well, I didn't realize that the teenager, is Catherine Newton. I didn't realize that. I don't know if this is her first movie or one of her first movies, but I mean,
always forget that she's in this. Yes,
I think she's great. I mean, I don't hate the actors. I think this is where the story starts to sort of meander a little bit, right? I think we're moving forward in the sense, it is pushing the story forward in a way, but almost in like a Easter eggy kind of way, and like it's weird that we're kind of going to a different family. I still don't. There are some aspects of this film that I still don't understand, and so maybe you can, when we get to spoilers, maybe you can explain them to me.
I'll certainly try,
because I don't know how do we get from A to B to C to D with some of the stuff.
Yeah, I would argue that this is probably the most convoluted film in the series. I know there are people who would argue that that's next of kin, but I disagree. I think this one gets a little muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, still has some fun stuff. I think, this isn't a spoiler, but I think the Xbox Kinect thing is pretty clever.
Yep.
With the motion dot sensors and like finding new ways. I mean, I think this series always does a great job at finding new ways to use the found footage format or do different paranormal evidence, pieces, so I enjoy that.
Yeah, they changed the use of technology as the films continue.
Yeah.
Which is evident throughout the entire series, or the entire franchise, not just this one, but there's evidence of that in some of the other ones we're going to talk about as well. The use of technology is just very, very smart. I think that is the only, this is not really a spoiler content wise, but just for my own personal beliefs before I rate this in a little bit. This is my least favorite film in the franchise. I think as far as scares, it's the most uneventful. And like, I'm with you on, I don't think it has anything to do with the people. I think it comes down to writing. I think the story by 4 was stretched way too thin. This would have been a great opportunity to use some of the things that worked in this film, but go with a different story or talk about something else or do something unique that goes away from the original family and all the stuff we've been learning from the past 3 films. And it just felt incredibly redundant and it just wasn't as scary for me. I think like, there's a couple moments where you're like, okay, that's pretty good. But for the most part, I felt really, really, really underwhelmed by this one.
It's not very tense. It's not a very tense movie. It's very confusing. Before we get into spoilers, but I think a lot of some of the plot points are, like you said, very convoluted. I almost feel like this movie if you took elements from this movie and elements from Ghost Dimension, you could have had a solid movie.
Yes.
Because I feel like the two together sort of
Oh, yeah.
accomplish what
Yeah.
could have been a good finale.
Yeah, I think, and I know we'll talk about it when we actually get to the Ghost Dimension episode, but I think the Ghost Dimension concepts are some of the more solid paranormal concepts I've ever seen. The concept of Ghost Dimension as a film was phenomenal. Loved it. But the inclusion of it, comparing it and connecting it to the other films and stuff, it's kind of like with this one, it just didn't work for me. Like it just felt forced and like, I think 3 picked up some more traction. I think a lot of people really like and respect 3. And so they were like, let's just keep it going, and then 4 came out
Yeah.
and I was excited to see it. And then I saw it and I was kind of like,
When it's not when it's not the main family as the focus, it really this franchise does sort of, with the exception of the marked ones,
Mhm.
which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
but yeah, 4 and 5. Well, when we get to 5, that's to spoil my thoughts on that
It
one.
is hard to talk about this franchise and only focus on the movie you're talking about, though, in
Yeah.
general. Like, it is difficult because they do all tie in. The only one I think that I haven't made a direct connection to is Next of Kin, but all of the marked ones ties in. It ties in with this family, and so anyway. There's just things that like it's hard not to talk about the way it works with the other stuff. When you're talking
Yeah,
about
I
it,
know. It is so challenging.
it's hard not to just be like, oh yeah, and then in this one and this one, especially once you get to 3, it becomes really difficult not to. But yeah, where do you rate this?
I not like abysmally low, but I'm gonna give it a 6. Is that high? Is that too high, you think?
I think so.
I'm
Uh,
very I'm very kind with my ratings. I don't
yeah.
think it's a 5 or a 4. I mean, maybe if I'm gonna be harsher, maybe a 5.5. But I'm gonna stick with the 6 because I think just on the curve. Because I think 2 I gave like a 9.5 or a
Yeah.
9 or
Yeah.
something. 3 is up
Mhm.
there too. I think on the curve I'm gonna deduct it like 3, 4 points. So 6, yeah, 6.
You're so funny. You're like, if I'm gonna be harsh, it's point 0.5 lower.
I'm
You're
too nice.
so nice.
I'm too nice. I'm sorry. Don't
No,
please take me
no,
serious as a critic, everybody.
it's your rating. So no, it's absolutely, I mean, yeah, there are plenty of people that really like this one. I mean, Scott, for example, is one that really likes this one because of the specific Xbox thing. Like he thinks that just puts it at like, and I'm like, yeah, but not for me. So for me, my rating for Paranormal Activity 4 is a 4 out of 10 tapes. I was incredibly underwhelmed by this film. I kept waiting on something good to happen and it just didn't. And the connection to the original story to me made no sense. They really had, like I said, an opportunity. They had an audience by that point. They really
Mhm.
could have done something unique with it and stepped away from the Katie story.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't. And it just felt, like I said, muddy and convoluted. So 4 out of 10 for me.
All right. Shall we head into spoilers so we can
Yeah,
really
I think we're having a hard time not talking about them.
I know, it's so hard. So we're gonna pull
Yeah.
up the spoilers
Yeah.
banner
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Um, so my biggest gripe with it is the adoption aspect. I don't understand. Like, wait, but who's this other kid? I still sort of forget. Do they explain it? Do I always just keep missing the explanation for this other child?
No, you're talking about the son that lives in the house, right? Not the little
So
boy that comes
there's
over.
their son, who is
Mhm.
supposedly Hunter.
Yep.
Who's this other kid? The weird one.
So, I thought it was that.
Is that the
Well,
ghost?
now
Is
I'm
that Toby?
confused. Huh?
Is that supposed to be Toby or something? I don't know. I'm so confused. The one living with Katie.
The one living with Katie is her nephew, the one she kidnapped, right? And then the
No,
other
because
kid,
I thought the kid, like who, Catherine Newton's
isn't one of the
brother.
kids' names Wyatt? Did I make
Wyatt.
that up?
Wyatt is Catherine Newton's brother, but his original name, who Toby keeps telling him, was Hunter,
Oh, it's the same kid. Okay.
and that he's adopted. But then, who the hell is this weird kid who stays with them when Katie goes to the hospital?
Oh, yeah, the kid that she just happens to have.
Yeah, who the hell is that?
So see, I don't know. I don't think because the other thing is she kidnapped Hunter. So how did he end up getting?
How
Did
did
they
he get
explain
adopted?
that?
No, I don't think.
I don't think they did
I'm like
either,
shaking my
unless it
camera
was
because I'm
so
getting.
boring I just didn't pay attention, but I don't think so.
This is probably my
I feel
third.
okay. I feel like a terrible fan of this franchise. I, honest to God, didn't realize that Hunter was the kid that lived in the house. I always assumed, because of logic, that the kid she had with her was the nephew that she stole when he was a baby.
Because that would make sense.
Maybe
But
my
why?
brain just wanted that to be the story. I just didn't even.
Because like that would make sense, right? But like, why? I mean, okay. This is probably the like I don't know. You can't trust Wikipedia, but I'm gonna go on Wikipedia and see if like what the actual
Yeah.
um explanation here is
It
because
feels it feels like, you know what it is? This is my analysis of why these decisions were made. The additional little boy is there because there's no way Katie could have gotten close enough to Hunter for a full-length film without another child being present. Because storyline wise, we would have
yeah.
been like, what the hell? That why is like there would have been no way for her as an adult to get close to Hunter without there being another kid. So maybe it's supposed to be that she just kidnapped another little kid. Maybe it's a
So
kid in the cult.
yeah. So on Wikipedia, this is
Mhm.
the Wikipedia explanation. I'm
Okay.
going the middle reveal here.
Okay.
It is then revealed that Robbie's mother, so Robbie is Catherine Newton's brother, is
Mhm.
actually Katie. That Robbie's mother is actually Katie. She tells Wyatt that he and Robbie were adopted and that his other family needs him back. He argues with an unseen on her presence about his true name, declaring, "I'm not Hunter," which I remember that scene.
Yep.
So as the month progresses, they're even more blah, 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 blah. Wyatt goes into a trance. But I don't understand. So how does she end up with two kids? So, okay. Is Wyatt so I guess some spoilers for Ghost for Marked Ones and Ghost Dimension. Is Wyatt just another kid that Toby is trying to use to come back? Because like they clearly hedge their bets and have multiple options, as we see with the Marked Ones.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, because it's obvious that the coven and this agreement is not limited to Katie's family only. The coven
Right.
itself is bigger than that. There's more families. There's more
Mm-hmm.
like, so I think we are meant as an audience to just sort of accept that she just borrowed him
But
to
then
get
how?
close to Hunter to take him, I guess.
But why? But if she had Hunter, how did Hunter go from her to this family, and
See,
then she
that is
needed
not explained.
what? Right. So that is my biggest gripe with this movie.
That's a big one. That matters.
It doesn't because like you didn't need to make that the thing, right? I mean,
Nope.
this kid could have been a candidate for the ritual. This
Mhm.
other this Catherine, I keep Robbie, and then Wyatt could have just been a pseudo, or could have just been his fake name, and that could have just been Hunter. And she used Hunter to get close to this other kid to, bring him into the fold.
Because and they could have kept an adoption story. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe the mother died in childbirth, but it was still connected to the coven, so they needed the baby back.
Right, because this
Like
would
there
have been
still
the
could have
firstborn
kept
son.
that angle, just switched what child was what.
Right.
Because otherwise it's very confusing.
It makes no sense. So it like this script needed another set of eyes. I don't know what. This
Yeah.
was written. So this was written by Christopher Landon,
Yep.
who has done some good stuff. I don't know what the heck he
Yep.
was. I'm sorry, Chris, if you're watching.
He's involved heavily in this franchise.
Yeah.
Because when everybody was talking about him not doing Scream?
Scream
No.
7. Yeah.
Scream 7. I was like, I don't even know who that is. And so I looked him up and I was like, oh, he was like
He did all
heavily
these.
involved in Paranormal Activity, because it wasn't
Yeah.
just this one he was involved in. He was involved in other ones too. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
I had no,
Yeah.
like if you've been watching the channel for more than 5 minutes, like directors, actors and actresses, names, producer. I don't know who any of those people are. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they do. I always have to look them up.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay.
Not so much for indie stuff. Indie stuff I'm much better about knowing, but like big stuff like this, I'm like, I have no idea who that is.
Mm-hmm. I know you really have to you have to really study IMDb, like which I do sometimes.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I'm guilty of it, but
Yeah.
That's my biggest gripe with this movie. I mean, I think the actors are
Yeah.
great. I actually think the parents are, the child actors are great. The parents are great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just this, they really get lost with the lore here. And you were right with the scares not being really up to par.
No. There's only 2 things in this one that I thought were good, and they didn't scare me. I just thought they were clever, which is the connect dots.
Mhm.
That was good, and then the knife. The knives are in this one.
Ooh, the knife gag was great.
The knives were good. It was one of those, "Oh, like, that's good, that's clever," you know? That and the connect were the only 2
Mhm.
moments I think in this that were just like, "Oh, wow," like, that got my attention, I guess. Everything else felt really, really flat in that regard. But and to be fair, like, in my opinion, 1 and 3 on the scare level have the best stuff. Like, as far
Mhm.
as, the first one is one of those things where, I went home after seeing it in theaters, and at the time I was living on my own, and I had a roommate, but she was never there, and I remember being uncomfortable with the idea of being drug out of my bed. Like, I remember feeling that way. And 3 to me had some of just the best stuff scare wise, and so that's kind of the standard going into 4, and you're just kind of like,
Mhm.
you know.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So, trying to think what else, what other big points here. I mean, and also the MacBook, the webcam stuff was another the other new tech addition,
Technology. Mhm.
right? Because we had
Which,
mostly
yeah,
security cams in the second
me
one.
too. Yeah.
Did the daughter have a phone that she used? I don't think we saw a daughter like the phone footage or anything like that. I think it was
From
just the
2? No.
yeah, it was just security cameras.
Yeah, she was kinda young. It probably would have been impractical for her to have, like, at that time that film came out, it would have been a little impractical, I think.
Oh, like oh no, 2010. Yeah, because it really wasn't. We had social media, but not to like the level we have it now.
Yeah. I mean, if she did have one, it wouldn't probably be used for that per se.
No, 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 no. That's why I think the
Um,
computer here makes more sense because really I remember
yeah,
using um like FaceTime on my MacBook a lot. I don't even know if it was called FaceTime at that point. I think it was just video chat. It wasn't even like maybe it
yeah,
was
it's
FaceTime
Skype
actually.
in this, right?
Is it Skype?
I thought it was. It may not be. I thought it was Skype.
I
Because
don't
Skype was,
know.
like, it for a long time as far as, like, if you wanted to do that. It was, you
Yeah.
know.
But I thought that was clever too, how she had her friend come in and do the recording, even though he's a bit of a pervert, but recording her, but um using that to her advantage, recording what was going on. I like that kind of hacking into the computers around the
Yeah.
house. That
Yeah, the
was cool.
concept itself was intriguing, but I think they underdid it. I think they could have done something a lot more with what we saw, like, on
Hmm.
the camera itself, because that was really just not.
Yeah, they overused the running, like the kids running in the background as the scare a lot. They
Yeah.
overused that one.
And noises that don't turn into anything. That was another
Yeah.
one in this one. And then, I'm pretty sure it's this one, I'm picturing it. The part with the not bicycle, but
Oh,
what
the little tricycle
the
thing.
tricycle. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah,
Well, that was cool because it was a little bit of a Shining reference, but
I guess.
I
But it
don't
was
know.
just like, it just wasn't very.
No, no, it didn't hit the intensity of like one
No.
through three. And then I think they sort of at this point they
Mhm.
overuse the finale trope of everyone just sort of getting thrown around and killed. Right? I think like it works for one because it's one person, Mika.
Yep.
Works for two because it's Katie doing it, and that just sort of same killer, same MO. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Three kind of was fine because that was the first time we just saw like Toby doing it, and then just doing it again. It just sort of like it needed a different kind of ending. I think.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I really feel like this was an opportunity to just do something different for the franchise. Um,
Yeah. And then
I
we don't
just
get a wrap up to her being found out by the coven. We never see Catherine Newton again,
no.
right? And it almost
And
feels like this is where the storyline kind of ends in a way because we don't get a lot of Katie or Christy outside of their childhood like their young versions.
Yeah.
Right? Because Katie doesn't show up in like adult Katie.
I would have liked to have seen like something, honestly, like even though I see where this could have ended up being kind of redundant too, I would have really liked to have gotten into more of like the older people in the coven, like because you've got these like, I guess I don't know, they haven't like established this, but it feels like from what we've seen that there's definitely like a council of some kind. There are
Mm-hmm.
people running the show, and I would really like to get a perspective of the Paranormal Activity stories where we get more information about that as a whole and less about just this one family and how
Right.
it like affects. Like by this movie, this would have been the opportunity to branch out. Now we do get, some branching in and some of the other ones in March ones and then in Next of Kin. But I think that like this would have been the one to do that. And then they really
Yeah.
could have almost gone an anthology route. And I
Yep.
think it would have still kept the same audience. People would have still been intrigued, but it just would have given them a chance to really do something else instead of giving us a watered down version of the same shit we've seen in the last 3 movies.
Yeah. I think you could have skipped the story in 4, went right to Ghost Dimension, wrapped this up,
Yep.
and did an anthology.
Yeah. They still can. They still could.
It's true. It is wide open. They could do more.
Um, yeah, I
I mean, we're
just,
getting a
and
video
like,
game.
huh?
I mean, we're getting a video game, which we haven't even talked about. That'll be on Coffee Crypt. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's being done by the guy that did the mortuary assistant,
Yeah.
which is
It's
can't
gonna be
play it.
it's gonna
It's
be
scary,
interesting.
but I've watched it and it is phenomenal. um, but yeah, I just think that I probably won't be able to play this either. It'll scare me too bad. Just wait till you get me playing the other game that we're gonna do eventually. I'll be so
Yes,
scared.
Phasmo.
Um, But yeah, I think like you said, like the acting, I think is the only reason that I was even able to finish it because I think that they do
Mhm.
fine. I think they're believable. I think the decisions that they make are believable, which is
Yeah.
huge in a found footage film. I never felt like they were just idiots, like walking around doing really, really dumb things. I mean, our main character, or at least our main focal point, is a teenager.
Yeah.
So it's, you know what I mean? Like as far as like believability and stuff, it has it for me.
Yeah.
It's just that the story got crazy, the scares were really underwhelming, and I just, you know, when I go into Paranormal Activity, I wanna come out of it unnerved, at least in some sense, and when it was over, I was like, I just didn't feel that way, and, and it's exactly like you said, it's the same exact formula too, because right towards the end is when it starts getting super chaotic. The family,
Mhm.
like the mom and all of that starts getting really chaotic, and it amps up to what's going to happen, like the big, weird, wild ending. And I just,
I mean, Katie putting the bodies in the closet was sort of interesting, and it almost became a
yeah,
little bit of like a weird slasher movie for a few minutes.
yeah.
Like how like I don't know. That was fine. Uh, I don't know. I don't want to just bash the movie, but it is the most underwhelming of the bunch.
And but you know what I will say, there was enough of it in there though that made me still want to see marked ones. That still makes
Yeah,
me want to see more of them. I mean, even if this is a weaker entry, this is only as weak as it is because the others are so good. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like, and not to say like I'm really complimenting. I don't quite mean it like that, but just in the sense that like when you think about what makes it a weak film, it's not because it's a weak film on its own. It's only a weak film because the others are so strong in
it's
comparison.
surrounded by better films.
It's surrounded in the franchise, literally on both
Yeah,
sides. And so it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's just that makes it harder to like let that stuff kind of slide because the expectation is already really high because we've seen what they can do in this franchise. Because I think, and you have it up, so maybe you could tell me faster. I think he did 3 as well.
Landon, I think so.
I think he
I just
did
clicked
3
his
as well.
name. He did. Yeah, he wrote 3.
Yeah,
He
so
wrote
see.
he wrote 2, 3, 4 marked ones.
Mhm.
He only directed marked ones. And then he wrote Next of Kin.
So see, every other installment he wrote is super strong. It's just this one. But you know what, though? The other side of that is he probably was told it had to be connected. So he probably did the best he could with what he was given. But the proof in what he could do is there.
Do its own thing. And like, yeah, I'd be curious. Like a lot of times it is studio meddling. And this almost feels like it probably was, you know.
They wanted a cookie cutter version of some of the others because that's what made them money. And they don't want to take risks, especially in the horror genre. They just want people to just copy paste. So you're probably right. It's the same thing with a lot of other horror films where the studios get involved and they muck up a lot of stuff that would have otherwise been extremely successful and well done. So, but yeah, no, I wanted more from it. I still love the franchise, and it wasn't enough to make me like never watch another one. You know what I mean? Like, so it wasn't that bad.
Like if I ever do a marathon, I probably won't even skip this one. I would probably watch it.
I didn't. Addie and I told you, we just rewatched all of these, and we didn't skip that one. I don't think I would have been allowed to, but I wouldn't have anyway because it's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
right. It's still part of it. It's not a horrible movie, right? But
no. It's like only rated the way that it's rated because it's connected to the other films. That's the only reason. If I watched this by itself, I guarantee you, if it was not related to Paranormal Activity, if it didn't carry the name, it would have been rated higher. Guarantee. Yeah. And I think that's worth mentioning. Like, not just being a jerk about it. Like, it really is only because the other ones are so good.
Right. It has to be sort of considered as part of the pack. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, I think I've said all I can say before.
I'm really surprised we were able to get it to 26 because there's like a minute there where I was like, what else?
What else is there? Hey,
it's a lot easier to talk about something that you're really like in love with versus like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, okay, cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our thoughts on Paranormal Activity 4. Next week, Steve and I will be back talking, continuing this series, and we will be doing marked ones, which I'm excited about, and I'm glad that you're not one of the people that's like. So
I enjoy it.
I really liked the marked ones, but anyway,
it's real cool, real different. Gets real weird.
Yep, that's what I wanted from 4. Was something different and weird. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on this episode of Found Footage Fridays. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and we will see you next week.
See ya.